expensive program, you're going to have to find either you're going to be cutting education in your prison systems, or you're going to be raising taxes, and most states will raise taxes. So I think because the Supreme Court is taking up this discussion, it's important to talk about Obamacare's impact on our personal liberties and freedom. This being a Tea Party movement meeting, I think that's on everybody's mind. What we've entered is a new era of government authority. We no longer have a limited government that is reined in by the Constitution. What we have is an unwieldy government that writes massive laws and then I'll give you an example. So much of Obamacare is suggestions and ambiguous guidelines for Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services has huge discretion because of this law to literally fill in the blanks. So it's not, what we're seeing is not Congress writing a specific law. We're seeing them just hand over to Health and Human Services lawmaking authority. And the reason that that's scary is in our system of divided government, in our system of separation of powers, the founders' intent was that Congress, members in Congress whom you know their names and you can unelect, would be writing these laws. So when an offensive law gets put into place, you can unelect that person. The problem is, we will never see Secretary Sebelius' name on a ballot. We will never have the opportunity to vote her out of office. She's implementing things that are offensive to most Americans. The contraception law is offensive to the vast majority of Americans. She has discretion there. And it's a shocking thing that most Americans didn't realize when Obamacare was passed, was how much discretion the administration and the regulatory bureaucrats were going to have. Okay, and then just briefly I want to talk about Ohio's opposition to Obamacare, because your state is actually a very good example of how to do this. And your state is part of the lawsuit that is progressing through the Supreme Court. There's also been a lot of political opposition. In 2010, Ohio was a really great example for conservatives because you went out and voted and you had huge turnover. The conservatives and the Republicans you put into office who had campaigned against Obamacare, Ohio is one of the best states for that, just the amount of turnover. And then your grassroots opposition. One of the things in Washington, D.C. that we've talked about a lot is how Ohio is really great at organizing and how you have been able to put together a grassroots movement that actually has an impact on your state legislature and on your representatives you send to Washington. So just as a recap, Obamacare is going to harm all Ohioans. It's the employers, the employees, people who are starting businesses, innovators. And it's important, especially because it's an election year, it's important for you to continue your grassroots opposition. You can write a letter to your state legislators, which I know a lot of you in Tea Party groups have done. Write a letter to your governor. It's also really helpful if you call your representatives and your two senators in Washington, D.C. I know that can be a very frustrating process, but it's worth it. And I will also tell you this, that having worked on Capitol Hill, I do know that if you write in your letter or your email that you are a constituent, all of those letters do get processed, they all do get read. You may feel like you're just sending off an email and no one's going to read it, but they do pay attention when their constituents are writing. Your Attorney General has been extremely impressive. He has an op-ed out this week just detailing his opposition to the individual mandate. He has been absolutely courageous in the way that he's been willing to stand up to Obama, specifically on the individual mandate, but on issues of individual liberty. And if you get a chance, you should definitely thank him for that. And that concludes my portion of the presentation, but as I said, I do want to give you the opportunity to ask questions if you have them, just because I think this is a topic on everyone's mind. So, see, Jeff.
There are microphones. Lou has one here, and Jim has one back here. So if you have a question, you would just raise your hand, wait till the microphone comes to you, and then you can ask your question of Shonda.
Yeah. My name is Bob. Oh, somebody want?
Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Bob Houston. You mentioned the individual mandate. Is it okay if I say about the petition that I have to sign?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'll be in the back if anybody wants to sign petition concerning the religious freedom to churches. But my question to you is two. My wife and I, and probably lots of people here, are with the Medicare Advantage plans, which end. Question number one, is there part of the health care that allows people to switch to the Medicare supplements in that case? That's my first question.
Okay. Yes, there is. There are a few plans that you'll be able to get on. I would encourage you, as you're getting that feedback from your Medicare Advantage plan, to let your representatives know. This is a good concrete example of what's happening. But then you should also call and just see if there are some alternatives that would qualify, because there are a few.
Okay, my second question is, it's my understanding, and one of the biggest things going on, debts problems going on in America right now, is student loans. Mm-hmm. And it's my understanding that student loans are included in the health plan, and these kids, if they don't pay their student loans when they get into Social Security, they will have their Social Security garnish sheet so the money can go to the health plan?
No, that's actually two different things.
Okay.
It's not contained in Obamacare.
Because I thought the student loans was part of the funding.
There is some overlap, but it's not, the garnishing of that is not part of it.
Okay.
Oh, just wait for the microphone.
Just got one back?
Yes, coming to you. Racing down the aisle.
My question is that I understand that the Congress didn't write the bill, and then as a result, there's not a provision in there that if the Supreme Court strikes down one clause of the bill, the whole bill is canceled, where normally bills are passed with this clause in that protects them if one section is declared unconstitutional. Is that
Correct.
the case?
Correct. So in most laws, what you have is called a severability clause. And the severability clause means if one section of this is found to be unconstitutional, the rest of the law will stay in place. What's interesting, by design, but what's interesting is there was a severability clause in the Senate version of Obamacare. It was actually removed by the Democrats because they didn't want it, because they understood that the individual mandate could be challenged. And so you can actually see that being taken out from one version to the next. And the only way that someone asked me once, well, maybe it was a typo. And I said, there are no typos, because in order for something to get taken out, you literally have to go down to the appropriate office on Capitol Hill, and you have to remove that. You have to have the person who's typing, you actually have to have an order from a member to remove it. So it was not an accident. It was intentionally left out.
Let me just clarify. Okay, so the severability is such that it was set up so that if the individual mandate was found to be unconstitutional, that the rest would stay in place?
Correct.
I have a question on the Advantage plans.